Hello students, I am Mrs. Kavita Upadhyay, your English teacher. I welcome all the students of class 9 to today's English class. Let us begin the class. Students, you know that we are reading the first chapter of your supplementary reader Moments, and the title of the lesson is The Lost Child, and this is the second and the last part of the lesson. This lesson is written by Mulkraj Anand. Now students, let us see what we have read so far in the lesson in the first part. A child went to the spring fair with his parents. He was attracted to toys, mustard fields, dragonflies, black bee, butterfly, worms, insects, flowers and doves on the way to the fair. He lagged behind his parents as he stopped to look at these things. His parents called him back to them again and again. Finally, they reached the village where the fair was being held. The child saw the crowd of people coming from all directions to the fair. Seeing the crowd, he felt attracted, but at the same time, he wanted to move away from there. In the fair, he saw a shop of sweets and his mouth began to water. He saw his favorite sweet burfi and begged his parents slowly to buy him burfi. But he knew that his parents would call him greedy and would not get him burfi. So he moved on without waiting for their reply. He saw a flower seller selling gulmohar garland. He was attracted to it. He again requested his parents in a low voice to buy a gulmohar garland for him, but he knew that they would say that the flowers were cheap and would refuse to buy a garland. So he moved on without waiting for their reply. Now let us read the story further. From A Man Stood to Laughing and Talking. This is the third section. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he well knew his parents would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. Now he sees a man selling balloons of different colors, yellow, red, green, purple, and they were flying from the pole. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors. They were bright colored balloons and they were in the colors of rainbow. The child was carried away, totally attracted towards the balloon, and he was filled with an overwhelming means overpowering, very powerful desire to have them, to possess them all, to have them all. But he well knew his parents would never buy him balloons. But he knew his parents are not going to buy him balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. They would say, you are now grown up boy and you should not play with such toys as balloons. So he walked on further. Now he does not even ask his parents. Earlier he used to whisper to his parents, I want burfi, I want a garland, but now he does not even say that. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as the snake charmers played, he proceeded further. Now the child sees a snake charmer who was playing flute to a snake which was sitting coiled inside the basket, and its head, its hood was raised in a graceful bend like the neck of the swan, while the music stole into its invisible. Invisible means that which cannot be seen. In invisible ears, like the gentle rippling of the invisible waterfall. This rippling is the music. The waves of music entered the ears of the snake like the invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden means not allowed. His parents had not allowed him to hear such coarse, unpleasant music as the snake charmers played. He proceeded further. He moved on because he knew that his parents would not like it if he stopped to listen to that music. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout. Please, father, mother. Now children, you must have seen this. This is a roundabout. You see this in fairs. There was a roundabout in full swing, and it was swinging round and round. Men, women, children carried away in a whirling motion. Whirling means circular motion, moving round and round. Men, women and children, they were carried in a whirling, in a circular motion, and as they were carried, they were enjoying it, they were excited. At the same time, they were afraid because the motion was very fast. So they shrieked and cried, and they were laughing also in a silly manner. The child watched them intently. Intently means with all attention. He watched them, and then he made the bold request. He gathered all courage this time and asked his parents very boldly, I want to go on the roundabout. Please, father, mother. This was his request to his parents, and he had made this very boldly. There was no reply, but he does not get any reply from his parents. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. Ahead of him, he turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. Now the child turns to look at his parents, but they were not there. He looks here and there, on this side, on that side, but he does not find them. He looks behind, but there is no sign of his parents anywhere. A full deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear. Mother, father, tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. A full deep cry rose within his dry throat. Why was the throat dry? Because he was afraid. He was lost. He was not with his parents. So he was not feeling secured. He was afraid. And his throat ran dry. And a full means very loud, deep cry rose from his throat. And with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood. Suddenly, he started running from where he stood, crying in real fear. He was really afraid this time, and he was crying loudly. Mother, father, tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. Hot tears started falling fiercely from his eyes. His flushed face, his face turned red because he was weeping and he was afraid, was convulsed. Convulsed means twitched with fear. Panic stricken, he ran to one side first and then the other, hither and thither in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he wailed. His yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. Now the child was panic stricken. Panic stricken means terrified. He was really very afraid, and he ran to one side first, then to the other side, hither and thither, here and there, in all directions, knowing not where to go. He did not know where to go. He was lost. Mother, father, he wailed. He cried loudly for his mother and father. His yellow turban came untied. His mother must have tied a yellow turban because it was spring fair to which they were going. That yellow turban came untied, became loose, and it was undone. His clothes became muddy. Why did they become muddy? Because he was sweating, because he was running, he started sweating, and there was dust. Dust mixed with sweat makes the clothes muddy. Having run to and fro, in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. Now, he ran a lot to and fro in this direction, in that direction, for a while, for some time. Now he stood defeated. Now he was tired. His cries suppressed to sob. Earlier he was crying, now he was just sobbing. See the child sobbing, weeping silently. At a little distance, on the green grass, he could see through his filmy eyes men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. Now, at a little distance, on the green grass, there was a field full of green grass, and the people were sitting there talking with each other. There were men and women talking. He tried to look intently means with attention, among these people, and he could not see them clearly because his eyes were full of tears. These were filmy eyes. Filmy eyes means tearful eyes. When you have tears in the eyes, you cannot see things clearly. What he sees is patches of bright yellow clothes. He does not see clearly. He sees that there are bright yellow patches here and there, but he tries to see closely or attentively, but he sees that there is no sign of his father and mother among these people who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. They were just sitting there enjoying themselves, chatting with each other. Now students, here are meanings of difficult words for you. The first is overwhelming, which means very strong. The child was having an overwhelming desire to possess all the balloons. That was a very strong desire. Forbidden means not allowed. His parents had forbidden him to listen to the coarse music of snake charmers. He was not allowed to listen to their music. Then convulsed means caused to contract. The child was very much afraid after being lost in the fair, so his face convulsed with fear. Panic stricken. That means in the state of intense fear. What was the condition of the child when he was lost? He was panic stricken. He was very much afraid. Then wailed. Gave out long and loud cry. When he was not able to find his parents anywhere, he wailed. That means he gave out a long and loud cry. Now try to answer the questions which are based on the section that we have just read. What are the things that the child wants in the fair? Why does the child move on without waiting for his parents' reply? When does he realize that he has lost his way? He asked his parents to let him go on the roundabout. Is it true or false? Note down these questions and try to answer them. Now let us read the last section of the story. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering. Mother, father, near the entrance to the temple. However, the crowd became very thick. Now, this time he sees something. People were going towards one place, that was a temple. They were going in crowd. The child thought that his parents might be there. So he started running towards the temple, to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men. There were men at every inch of space there. So that means there was a thick crowd. But he ran through people's legs, his little sobs lingering, mother and father. He was running between the people's legs to the temple, to the entrance of the temple, and he was still sobbing and calling mother and father. Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Now the entrance of the temple, see the entrance of the temple, it is a narrow place. So when people from all directions come and try to enter the temple, the crowd becomes very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust away between their feet, but knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. He might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice. Father, mother, a man in the surging crowd heard his cry and, stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. Now children, see, men jostled each other. They were at the entrance of the temple, and there the crowd was very thick and people were jostling, means pushing each other. They were heavy men, they were powerful men with flashing, means red, murderous means angry, because all wanted to enter the temple first. They had hefty shoulders, they had powerful shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust away between their feet. The poor child, he was very small and it was too difficult for him to get way through their feet. He was trying to do it anyways, and he was getting knocked to and fro, knocked in this direction or in that direction by their brutal, their powerful movements. Whose powerful movements? The powerful movements of these heavy men who were pushing against each other. He might have been trampled underfoot. Trampled means crushed. He might have been crushed under the feet of these people had he not shrieked. If he had not shrieked, shouted at the highest pitch of his voice, as loud as he could, father and mother. He cried for his father and mother at the highest pitch of his voice, and a man in the surging crowd, the crowd which was moving forward, he heard his cry, and stooping means bending with great difficulty, he lifted him up in his arms. How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? The man asked as he steered clear of the mass. He took the child out of this crowd and then he asked, how did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? The child wept more bitterly now. Now he was weeping even louder than ever and only cried, I want my mother, I want my father. The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. Will you have a ride on the horse? He gently asked. As he approached the ring, the child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs and he only shouted, I want my mother, I want my father. Now the man tried to soothe him, calm him down, quieten him, because the child was weeping bitterly, and he took him to the roundabout. You saw that roundabout earlier. And he asked him, would you want to have a ride on these horses? But the child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs. But the child starts crying and shouting, I want my mother, I want my father. The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. Listen to that nice music, child, he pleaded, but the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double-pitched strain, I want my mother, I want my father. Now the man wanted to soothe him. He took him to the snake charmer who was playing flute to the cobra, and the cobra was still swaying its head. Swaying means moving sideways. And he says to the child, listen to this nice music, child. He requests the child to listen to this music, but the child shuts his ears. I don't want to listen to anything. And he shouts his double-pitched strain. That means as loudly as he can. I want my mother, I want my father. The man took him near the balloons, thinking that bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. Would you like a rainbow colored balloon? He persuasively asked. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed. I want my mother, I want my father. Now the man thought that he is just a child and he would be attracted to the balloons which are of many colors, and these colors would attract the child very much. So he takes him to the balloon seller and asks him, would you like to have a rainbow colored balloon? He persuasively asks. Persuasively asks means he presses the child to have a balloon. The child turned his eyes away from the balloon and sobbed. I want my mother, I want my father. The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck? The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob, I want my mother, I want my father. The man was still trying to quieten the child. He took him to the gate where flower seller was sitting and selling the garland of gulmohar. You remember that the boy wanted the garland earlier when his parents were with him, and he asked, can you smell these nice flowers? Would you like to have garland to put round your neck? The child turned his nose away from the flowers. He did not enjoy that smell anymore. He repeated his sob, I want my mother, I want my father. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? He asked. The child turned his face away from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. Thinking to humor, humor means make happy. His disconsolate means very unhappy. Charge, the boy whose care he was taking is his charge. So this boy whose care he was taking was utterly unhappy, and the man wanted to make him happy. So he wanted to give him a gift of sweets. The man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. He wanted to have burfi earlier. Now the man asked him, what sweets would you like, child? He asked. The child turned his face away from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. Now children, you see that the same things that attracted the child earlier were not attracting him anymore. Why? Because he was separated from his parents. He may desire several things, but the first thing he needs is the safe company of his parents. Now students, here are meanings of difficult words that we came across in this section. First is congested, which means over full. The entrance of the temple was congested. It was over full. There were lots and lots of people there in a very small place. Trampled means crushed by walking over. The child would have been trampled under feet of the people if he had not been lifted up by the man. Then distract, to draw someone's attention away from. The man wanted to distract the child. He wanted to draw his attention away from the loss of his parents. Then persuasively, pressing or urging gently. The man was persuasively asking the boy to have sweets, to have flowers. That means he was urging him gently. Reiterated, that means to say again. The child was always reiterating that he wanted his parents. Disconsolate means one who cannot be comforted. The child, after losing his parents, was disconsolate. He could not be comforted. Now let us read the summary. The child was looking for his parents. He now ran towards a shrine. There was a thick crowd at the entrance. The child tried to push his way through people's legs. People were pushing each other. The child would have been crushed under their feet if he had not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice. A man heard him shriek and managed to lift him up. He asked the child about his parents and how he got there. The child was crying bitterly, so the man took him to the roundabout and asked him if he would like to have a ride on it. But the boy sobbed and cried for his parents. The man took him to the balloon seller, the snake charmer, the flower seller and the sweetmeat seller in turn, and offered to buy him the things he wanted from his parents earlier. But the child refused to take anything. He went on crying and wanted only his parents now. This story depicts the psychology of a child. He may want 1,000 things when he is in the safe company of his parents, but before anything else, he needs his parents. Now students, you have to match the table. Here are your senses. You have 5 senses: sense of sight, sense of hearing, sense of taste, sense of touch and sense of smell. And here are the things which attract the child's attention in the fair. They are related to one sense. You have to match the sense to the thing which is related to it. The sense of sight, which thing is related to it? Sense of sight, the things you see. See, balloons are related to the sense of sight. Their colors you see with the eyes. Now the sense of hearing. Which of these things is related to the sense of hearing? The snake charmer's flute. You listen to the music through your ears. Now the third sense is the sense of taste. Which of these things is related to the sense of taste? Barfi. The sense of touch. Which of these things is related to the sense of touch? The riding on a roundabout. You feel the air blowing into your face and going round and round. This is the sense of touch that you enjoy while riding on a roundabout. Then the sense of smell, and that is related to flowers. You smell flowers with your nose. So these are the things which are related to your 5 senses. The child wants things to satisfy his 5 senses when he is in the company of his parents, but none of the senses he wants to satisfy when he is separated from his parents. He wants only the company of his parents in which he feels safe. This is what Mulk Raj Anand has told through this story. Now children, you have to answer these questions. Who saved the child from getting crushed underfoot? How? What did the man ask the child? The child now does not want anything that he wanted earlier. Why? What do you think happens in the end? Write the end of the story in your own words. What do you think should be the end of the story? Write the end of the story in your own way. Use your imagination and write the end. Now talk about it with your parents, with your friends. You have to talk about how to ensure not to get lost. You will get several ideas and keep them in mind when you go out with your parents, okay? So that you don't get lost. Now suggested readings. After reading the story, you would like to read further some more things which might be interesting, and we suggest that you should read The Coolie by Mulk Raj Anand. This is a novel, and Kabuli Wala, which is written by Rabindranath Tagore. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. You will do your homework, do the assignment that is given to you on your own. Good luck for your studies.